The Greta toolkit linked to the Republic Day violence case is under sharp scanner. A day after arresting climate activist Disha Ravi, the Delhi police today came out with an explosive claim, terming her as part of a bigger, supposedly sinister plot to tarnish India's image globally, even calling her the linchpin of a Khalistani conspiracy to fan unrest in India. Disha's supporters, environmental activists and civil rights movement activists are aghast with what the Delhi police has done.
The images which shook the nation on Republic Day. Vandals running riot on streets of Delhi, attacking cops, damaging public property and raiding the Red Fort. And now, shocking revelations tumbling out in probe. Delhi police, probing the violence and conspiracy, has arrested a 22-year-old climate activist, Disha Ravi, calling her the key plotter, alleging her links to Khalistani group to fan unrest.
मकसद ये था कि टूल किट को इतना प्रोपेगेट किया जाए वर्ल्ड वाइड कि जो हमारे एम्बेसीज बाहर इंडिया से एम्बेसीज जो बाहर है उनके खिलाफ भी प्रदर्शन हो और जो इंडिया का जो इमेज है उसको टार्निश किया जाए और इसलिए जो भी बड़े जैसे इनकी फॉलोइंग ज़्यादा है उनको इसमें रोप इन किया गया.
The cops say Disha Ravi, along with other suspects, Nikita Jacob and Shantanu, held Zoom meeting with Khalistani Mohd Haliwal before Republic Day. She then shared the toolkit with Greta and shared it on WhatsApp group. Cops say the aim was to fan unrest and hurting India's global image.
Second part of the same document mentions tasks such as disruption of India's cultural heritage such as yoga and tea and targeting Indian embassies abroad in various capitals.
Cops say the toolkit mentions foreign resource point Peter Frederick, who is part of an info war against India. Frederick has alleged links to Khalistani operative Iqbal Chaudhry funding violent attacks in India through Pak spy agency ISI.
The name of Peter Frederick finds a place of relevance amongst those who are to be followed as resource persons is an answer which accused Disha or her colleagues will tell us. Whether it came from Mr. Mohd Haliwal or do they have a direct connection with Peter Frederick or B.S. Bhinder.
Will sinister details come out with probe hitting top gear? With inputs from Arvind Ojha and Tanseem Haider, Bureau Report, India Today.
There's a huge political fight that's erupted over the arrest of this young activist, Disha Ravi. Opposition parties are hitting out at the centre, accusing them of using or misusing state machinery to muzzle dissenters. Apart from the opposition, even Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan and US Vice President Kamala Harris's niece have condemned the arrest of Disha. Here's a look at the politics that's unfolding.
A tweet that took social media by a storm. A toolkit that raised Khalistani link to the farmer protest. And now, a 22-year-old's arrest has left the nation divided. The opposition and several key global figures have trained their guns at the Modi government. The Congress and the Trinamool Congress allege that the centre is scared of an unarmed young woman.
I am really sorry that actual who are the guilty and who are the doing the mistakes, and especially the BJP IT cells. They cannot spare a 21 years girl. Fight the politics politically, but don't abuse the people, don't accuse the people, don't beat the farmers, don't beat the students, don't beat the other people.
A country which is not afraid of China can't possibly be afraid of Disha, right? And if there is a conspiracy involved, which the government says there is, then they should make Greta Thunberg an accused, and make Rihanna an accused.
Even BJP's ally JDU joined in with the opposition ranks.
गिरफ्तारी उनको प्राथमिकता दर्ज हुई है उसके आधार पर गिरफ्तारी होती है उनको भी अपने आप को डिफेंड करने का अधिकार है लेकिन पुलिस को किसी फैब्रिकेटेड मामला बता करके दिखा करके या प्रयास करके किसी के साथ प्रताड़ना की कार्रवाई नहीं करनी चाहिए।
हम अपील करते हैं आज देश के युवाओं को, द यूथ ऑफ इंडिया को, कि आप एक स्वर में साथ आकर और स्ट्रांग तरीके से मजबूती से भाजपा सरकार को जवाब दें और उन्हें अपनी ताकत का एहसास दिलाएं।
Disha's arrest saw several international figures questioning the Modi government. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has been silent on atrocities being faced by activists from Pakistan, was quick to point fingers at India. His party accused the Modi government and the RSS of silencing voices of activists. Imran's party said the centre arrested Disha after using cricketers and Bollywood to build this narrative. US Vice President's niece, Meena Harris, tweeted condemning the arrest, saying that activists should not be targeted and silenced by the government. UK MP Claudia Webb and American environmentalist Bill McKibben also jumped in, expressing solidarity for Disha. Hitting back, the BJP claimed that young and impressionable minds are being used as cannon fodder in an anti-India plot.
This Tukde gang, those who are trying to divide this country through this toolkit, in fact, they have to face the tune of the law of this country. What is wrong in that? Why politicize this issue?
Law it will take its own course. उसमें कोई राजनीति नहीं रहना चाहिए। IPC CRPC के हिसाब से देश के सुरक्षा के विषय पर जो भी निर्णय लेना है पुलिस निर्णय लेंगी।
After the Greta Thunberg toolkit controversy, now the arrest of Disha Ravi and the non-bailable warrant against Nikita Jacob have also invited a lot of international criticism. While on the one hand, most of them are not commenting on the farm laws per se, they are talking about and condemning the manner in which the Indian state has handled the arrest and the warrants against activists in India. In New Delhi, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
So how strong is the evidence against Disha Ravi? Did the police act according to law? Is this a case of gross overreach by an investigating agency? Joining me on the Newstrack showdown, I want to welcome first and foremost, representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, its spokesperson Gaurav Bhatia. Squaring off against him from the opposition Congress, we have the chief of the IT cell, Rohan Gupta. For two legal perspectives on the legality and the manner and the process followed in this arrest and what's happened since, I have CA Sundaram, one of our top advocates at the Supreme Court. Squaring off against him is Avni Bansal. And I have Leo Saldana, coordinator of an environmental support group, for a sense of how the activists and environmentalists are looking at this case. I want to go across first and foremost to Gaurav Bhatia to try and explain why you believe, in the face of the kind of outrage this arrest has generated, that the Delhi police did the right thing. Why is it that you believe that the evidence against this particular climate rights activist Disha Ravi is strong enough? You're a lawyer yourself. Why is it that you believe that this is a fit case for sedition? Gaurav Bhatia.
So Rahul, let me first begin by saying that I don't have to explain anything, for a reason that I believe in the constitution of our country and the judiciary of the country. In my hand I have the police remand order for Disha Ravi, and she has been remanded to police custody for 5 days. As a citizen of the country, I have a very simple question to ask. That would we have faith in the judiciary of the country, or would media and people who hate Narendra Modi ji suddenly start deciding whether the arrest was right or not? The answer is plain and simple. It is for the judiciary to decide. But I take strong objection to certain phrases that have been used. Is there overreaction by the Delhi police? Let us not forget that on 26th of Jan, when these anarchists dishonored our tricolor, it was the Delhi police that showed restraint. They acted in a very brave manner, ensured that none of the citizens are hurt. And today we are saying that the same Delhi police is overreacting. If there is a toolkit, and I will read only two phrases from the toolkit, and this is objectionable to any Indian. Rahul, it says that what if the 3 farm laws are repealed? This toolkit that was circulated in India, and Disha Ravi was also one of the conspirators, says that this protest needs to continue, clearly reflecting that this is not about the 3 farmer laws. They want anarchy and divisiveness to prevail in our country. And second, I take strong objection to the words used in this toolkit which say how to run down India. Now, farmer laws is our internal matter. Why would the Khalistanis come out? And now, I am very, very, deeply hurt also that these people, they feel that protesting and inciting is equal. They have a Zoom conference with Mo Dhaliwal, and then they actually hatch a conspiracy against our country. And when the law is taking its own course, Rahul Gandhi, Arvind Kejriwal, they come out and what do they say? They say 21-year-old, vegetarian, animal lover, environmental activist. Poor soul has been arrested. So I ask you, can a vegetarian who eats paneer cannot be a criminal?
Okay.
An animal lover cannot be a criminal?
Okay.
This is just
Rohan
a way
Gupta, Gaurav Bhatia is saying, let's leave the politics out. Have faith in the judiciary. If the police have indeed acted in overreach, the law will take its course. Disha Ravi will be freed by the judges. Have faith in the judiciary. Don't make this political. This is a law and order matter. Don't make it political. Opening comments, Rohan Gupta.
Yeah, Rahul, I heard Mr. Bhatia talking about faith in judiciary. The country would have faith in judiciary or police if Kapil Mishra or Anurag Thakur, when the whole country knows what kind of statements they have made and they are not behind the bars. The country would have full faith in this government if Mr. Deep Sidhu, who was after the conspiracy in January 26 incident, he should have been behind the bar on day 1. The country would have full faith in this government if the farmers wouldn't have been called Khalistanis, and people who call farmers Khalistanis, they should have been behind bar, including the CM of Haryana. The country would have had full faith in the judiciary if Mr. Khattar, Haryana CM, the action should have been taken, and one minister of Haryana government, he spoke against farmers yesterday. So I think there is no question of faith here, Rahul. There is no faith left because now the meaning of sedition is anybody who is against BJP, the sedition charges will apply, not against India. So let me remind BJP very clearly, speaking against BJP is not speaking against the country. So the question here is, if they were really unbiased, the action would have been taken in past against every person who has really gone against the country. Let me give one more example. On the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi ji, there is a picture of BJP office bearer garlanding Godse. Is it not the matter of sedition? There is a BJP MP. She says that Godse is the patriot. There is no action against her. So what are we talking about? Absolutely, it is a two-side where, absolutely this BJP government is exports in name of sedition, in name of Rashtravad.
Arima Sundram, the charge being leveled by those who support Disha Ravi is that the Delhi police have failed to follow the guidelines laid down by the Supreme Court in the Arnesh Kumar versus the state of Bihar 2014 case when it comes to arrest. That when she was arrested from Bengaluru, she should have been produced before a court in Bengaluru for obtaining a transit remand as she was being moved between states. She was not. She was produced before a duty magistrate in the Patiala High Court, who by no means is the nearest magistrate as required by Clause 2 of Article 22. She did not have an opportunity to seek legal counsel, nor was one provided to her. This is a breach of Clause 1 of Article 22. These actions by the Delhi police have made a complete mockery of the procedure established by law in depriving Disha Ravi to the right to life and liberty. How do you respond to these charges being made about the manner in which the Delhi police acted? Arima Sundram.
Well, these charges will be responded in the court, and the court will decide what the answer to these charges are. But let me just point out one thing. There is a caveat in all this, that if the imprisonment is more than 7 years, The question of the pre-investigation under Section 41A is not mandatory at all, and that is the law. The fact is, for the kind of charges which are sought to be levied, or rather the FIR has been registered, there are charges which have imprisonments which are far beyond the 7 years, and therefore there will be an argument put forward that they were perfectly justified in arresting her and bringing her to the nearest magistrate at the place where the FIR has been registered, and that is exactly what was done. And if she had so moved, she could have moved for transit bail and got transit bail. So I'm not going into the legalities of this. The technical aspects of this will be decided. But for example, if somebody has committed a murder in Delhi and the person is in some other state, I don't see how this 41A pre-investigation for give a summons, let the person answer to the summons will apply. It would not apply in such a case. So we have to keep the issue of that judgment within the four corners of that judgment.
Okay.
But coming now to the main thing, Rahul, my own feeling of it is, if you want me to comment on it, otherwise
no,
I'll stop.
Go on. I'm
right
very keen on knowing what you think. Go ahead.
Well, my feeling on the whole thing is it's very, very premature right now. Unfortunately, you know, I'm a huge believer in freedom of speech, as you well know, and speech and expression. But there are restrictions to that which we always recognize. Now, one of the problems of this freedom of speech and expression is while you have the freedom to speak and say what you wish, if it transcends any law, you face the consequences for that. Now, there are restrictions under Article 19.2 which the government may impose, but assume the government has not imposed any restrictions against your saying something on a given occasion, and you say it, and you're free to say it. But then, if what you have done is going to affect a law, which and you are going to have breached a law, you have to pay the consequences for it. Now, if you take a case like the present one, today with social media especially, the question of acting against the government, against the integrity and sovereignty of India, these are areas where the social media, far more than before where a person stood up and gave a speech standing in a podium, today with social media, there's a lot which can be done. And the police charge seems to go on the basis that there seems to be the involvement of the Khalistanis in the violence which took place. The proof of the pudding was the violence which took place. That was definitely an illegal act. There seems to be an allegation that there's an involvement of Khalistani monies and Khalistani movement within it, and they have penetrated that particular protest. There is an allegation that she has been in touch with them, that she has edited the toolkits. Now, these allegations may be made out, they may not be made out. But based on the allegations, assuming those to be true, well, law has its consequences. Free speech has its consequences.
Okay, Avani Bansal,
your freedom to do what you feel is right has its consequences.
Avani Bansal, a very senior police officer who was watching our coverage, called earlier this evening, and he had some important points to make, and I want to take them up with you. Point number one, he said, see what happened in the case of Nikita. You're saying, why was Disha Ravi arrested? See what happened in the case of Nikita. The police went, questioned her, it got late. Therefore, the police said, we'll come back the next day. And in the middle of all of this, Nikita absconded. She's missing. If she'd done nothing wrong, then what are these people scared of? Point number two, in the WhatsApp conversations put out by the Delhi police in the press conference, there's a reference to a conversation between Disha and Greta Thunberg, where Disha is telling her that the toolkit that you've put out could attract provisions of the UAPA, which is an Indian act which she was informing Greta about, saying therefore delete the toolkit. Now, if this is true, then clearly she at some level knew that some of what she was doing may later run afoul of the law. It's not as if she didn't know that.
Rahul, I want to begin where Mr. Sundaram, with all respect, stopped, and he makes a very important point, which is that freedom of speech and expression in this country has reasonable restrictions, and I don't think anybody in their right mind denies that. The question is, and Mr. Sundaram, in a way made a reference to it, that today the way social media is operating, two of the grounds, right, sovereignty and integrity of India, and one may add to it public order, which is also a reasonable restriction under Article 19.2, could seem to, there's an argument that could be threatened simply because of the power of social media. Now, my first question, and a legal question, is that if we think social media has the capacity to threaten the sovereignty of India thanks to a few tweets, why are we applying this so discriminately, right? So, for example, Rohan referred to, Kapil Mishra. That was not even on social media. That was a physical speech made. And yet we don't think that the sovereignty and integrity of India is, threatened there. Second, and to your question about the UAPA and sedition laws being invoked in the manner they are, it's very important to draw attention to a statistics that while UAPA has always been there, while the law on sedition is as old, in India as very many laws, IPC itself, the question is, why is it that it is only in the current government dispensation that there has been such a tremendous rise that we seem to be invoking UAPA and sedition as if it was just another law? And I have another very important question to raise. You see, for the people who don't understand the legal technicalities, the incident happened on 26th of January, the apparent, public disorder situation that happened. The question is, the tweet by Greta Thunberg was made on 4th of February. Nobody in the FIR that was filed was named. Now you're picking up people randomly who you think may have some connection because they're speaking to Greta Thunberg. Legally speaking, is that a thread enough for you to pick up anybody you like and slap them with whatever charges you like? And Rahul, in the limited time I have, I want to make one very important point. This we saw in Nadeep Kaur. We are seeing this now in the current Disha Ravi's case. There are letters that the police is getting saying that basic criminal procedure rules did not be followed thanks to the person who has been arrested himself. So, for example, in Nadeep Kaur's case, when the question was asked, why was no medical examination done? Because her family has alleged that there was, a torture in police custody. They said because we have a letter from her that says that she did not want a medical examination. Similar thing applies in Disha Ravi. Where is the right to legal counsel? So these basic protection in law.
But you've said what you have, but you dodged my question about why Nikita ran away. Avni Bansal, you said what you did, but you didn't answer my question about why Nikita ran away. She was questioned for 13 hours. When the police came back the next day, if she'd done nothing wrong, why is she absconding?
Well, see, there are two things, Rahul. First of all, in India, it's very easy for people to, for Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, with respect to sit and say, the law will take its own course. But what we are seeing is not these isolated incidents. What we are seeing is that people like Shiv Kumar, whose birthday it is after 2 months, we did a story, we went and spoke to the family. Shiv Kumar's family has not been allowed to meet him for a month. Now, the question is that it's all well for us to, sit on a TV debate and say, why are people absconding? And that may vary from case to case. I'm not saying there is no absconding happening in any case. But the question is, can you put the entire due process of law that has such strong foundations in this country and absolutely throw it outside the window?
Okay, Gaurav Bhatia, respond to the point that Avni Bansal makes about sedition charges being applied as if it's a traffic offence. It's not like a seatbelt offence where you're not wearing a mask or a seat belt or jumping a red light and you apply sedition charge. This is a very, very serious charge. This is a much larger debate about whether we should have sedition on the statute at all. The UK, from where this law comes, has struck sedition down, saying it's not required in a modern nation state. In India as well, that's an ongoing debate. And BJP leaders I have spoken to in the past have, when they were in government, been uncomfortable with sedition. Now you're invoking sedition left, right and centre as if you're picking up a cup of coffee and having your morning cup.
So, Rahul, I must say that a lot of arguments that have been made in defense of Disha Ravi and others are arguments that would be actually made in the court of law, and the court will decide. But I want to respond to a few. When you say that in a very callous manner, sedition charge is invoked, let me just remind you, very similar arguments also came when Umar Khalid was arrested, Varvara Rao was arrested, Tahir Hussain was arrested, Sharjeel Imam was arrested, Sudha Bhardwaj was arrested. And do you know the fate? The courts did not even grant them bail. Many of them are behind bars for a period of more than 1 year. And the selectivity is such that the Congress manifesto spoke about doing away with sedition. But their deputy CM in Rajasthan, Mr. Sachin Pilot, was charged under the sedition law. My point is very simple. These are arguments that have to be made in court, and we should have the highest of regard for the court. The police is doing its job. Second, responding to the Congress spokesperson, he said Kapil Mishra and Anurag Thakur have not been arrested. Now, 2 points, and these are very vital, and Sundaramji is here. He will also, present his views. An arrest should be made or not is to be decided by the investigating officer. If any citizen is aggrieved, he has a court of law. He can go there. He can say, a person needs to be also, charge sheeted. The court also has the power to add an accused under the Criminal Procedure Code. Second point, Lata Mangeshkar and Sachin Tendulkar have no right to freedom of speech and expression. They are being probed for actually supporting the country. But on the other hand, if you assist in making a toolkit, you incite people, and dissent and incitement are two different things as held by Supreme Court in the Shreya Singhal case. They are all fine. They will say this is freedom of speech. But our Bharat Ratna awardees have no freedom of speech. Such is the hypocrisy that they have. And I will say that it is an admitted fact that the WhatsApp group, which was used to incite people, was deleted. She is in police remand for 5 days. She herself said she'll cooperate in the investigation, which she is not doing. And she had a Zoom, a conference with people like Mo Dhaliwal. These are prima facie facts that are there in the open, and therefore let the court decide whether the arrest is legal.
Let me put that question before I go across to Leo. I want to put a question to Aryaman Sundaram based on what Gaurav Bhatia is saying. Now, this Mo Dhaliwal character has emerged as a key person in this investigation, but people who are watching, and somebody who was watching our coverage again said, but earlier nobody knew really who Mo Dhaliwal was. The government hasn't proscribed him as a terrorist. Let's assume there's a list of international terrorists and that's out in the public domain saying these are the people we're looking out for, and if you're in touch with them, that is an illegal activity. Sure, fair enough. But nobody really knew who Mo Dhaliwal was, and if this girl was in touch with Mo Dhaliwal, who in any case is not banned in any way so far at least, and that later becomes a crime. She clearly is opposed to what the government does. She wants to mobilize support against what the government's done on the farm laws. That is an anti-BJP activity. It needn't necessarily be an anti-India activity. The two are different. Arima Sudram.
Well, to protest is a fundamental right. No one can stop your right to protest. But to protest unlawfully is illegal and offensive and is a crime. Now, let's understand that as a starting point. The fact is, in this case, unfortunately, we cannot brush away through any kind of assumptions or otherwise the stark reality of what happened on 26 January. That faces us, that there was violence, there was a move, a very, very, very serious move to disrupt the public order. There was a serious move, in fact, even to attack the national flag. Now, these are things which are facts. Now, if there was a serious move, there's an investigation as to whether what was, and everybody supports the farmers in their cause. A lot of people do that. But nobody wanted the kind of protests which arose that day, and from which many of the farmers' unions have distanced themselves. So the question arose, who is behind trying to create what should be within India an issue as to farm laws and as to an issue as to protests by farmers or supported by others, and something to be resolved in the country through democratic means? Is that movement being used by some elements who intend to disintegrate India? Is that being used by them? And there was a very strong suspicion.
No, but many people,
that arose. Nothing of this
Mr. Arima Sundram, many people in the Sangh Parivar, many people, sir, in the Sangh Parivar at the time of the emergency imposed by Indira Gandhi tried to cultivate international opinion against what the government of the day was doing. This happened with BJP stalwarts, it happened with RSS.
Nothing wrong in that.
There's nothing wrong with that per se.
There is nothing, Rahul, there's nothing wrong in that. Of course you can cultivate international opinion. If you have a voice and you want to say something, I can cultivate whoever it is to support my voice. We have gone away here from a protesting voice. We have gone to violent acts which you saw on 26 January. We have gone into suspicion that there is a move to undermine this entire protest by trying to make it a violent means of disrupting the very governance of the country.
Okay, let Leo Saldana come in now.
If you try to get foreign support or otherwise, if the basis is a crime, then getting the support for that crime also becomes a crime.
Now, Gaurav Bhatia and Arima Sundram have a couple of important points.
Legitimate cause, there's nothing wrong in that.
Leo Saldana, Gaurav Bhatia and Arima Sundram made a couple of important points. One, there was actual violence. There was a genuine crime that was committed. There can be no question about that because that was seen by the whole country, and therefore the police is at this moment trying to investigate the conspiracy that led to the crime, and in that they are probing Disha and others like her, and if evidence is found, They will be prosecuted, and if evidence isn't found, a court of law will let them go. Why make this out to be such a wrong act by the police? Let's go across to Leo Saldana.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I must start by saying that I just came away meeting a senior police officer, and the delegation that met him gave him two representations. One representation was to file an FIR against Home Minister of Haryana, who was called out through a tweet asking that Disha Ravi be slaughtered for being an anti-national. The second representation actually asks the Karnataka police to file a complaint against, to raise an FIR against the Delhi police. Now, the first is obvious why that FIR has to be lodged, because hate speech has become almost the mantra by which any dissent is attacked. And the party in power at the center, and for us also in the state, attacks us for anything that we say. I mean, if I complain about potholes, tomorrow I'll be an anti-national. It is as ridiculous as it gets. But the second part of what the second delegation representation we made speaks to the fact that there is a Delhi High Court judgment from about a year and a half ago, which very clearly tells the Delhi police what an interstate arrest ought to be. Now, every Delhi police senior officer knows what the judgment is. But when it came to Disha Ravi's case, they flew in, they picked her up, they did not give her legal counsel. She was under duress, her mother is under duress. They put her in a plane, take her to Delhi, and produce her before a magistrate on a Sunday. Now, I would like to know, for instance, did the magistrate ever ask, did you bring her here with a transit warrant at all? Or did you just pick up anybody? I mean, you know, the power that Delhi police has exhibited through Disha Ravi's case, today the Home Minister of Karnataka was asked, was that right? And what shocked me was what the Home Minister, Mr. Bommai, says. He says there is no need for such protocols. Karnataka police can go anywhere and pick up anyone they want and come. So it's all fine. Is this the rule of law BJP believes in? Because let me say also this. Swadesh Jagran Manch, Professor Kumaraswamy is one of their senior leaders. I have worked with him. He's an RSS man. I don't like that RSS organization, but on issues we have worked with him. He has actually taken issues which were against nature, against biodiversity, against farmers, to fore us, which you would probably say are seditious now. You see,
okay.
This is where
so, Avni Bansal, I want you to respond to the substantive points that Gaurav Bhatia and Aryama Sundaram made. One, that there was a protest which involved a crime. It's not as if dissent is the same as incitement. There is incitement here. There are parts of that toolkit which say, you know, even if these laws are withdrawn, the agitation must continue, where it seems as if the problem, the idea is to destabilize the current government, which is not just a political protest per se, but something deeper and sinister. Respond to Aryama Sundaram and Gaurav Bhatia. Avni Bansal.
Yes, now very quickly, I'll just take a minute to respond to 2 points made by each of the speakers, Mr. Sundaram and Mr. Bhatia. First, to what Mr. Sundaram said, and I completely agree with him, that what happened on 26th of January is absolutely deplorable, and everybody without an exception has said that it was very unfortunate, that, you know, what happened was absolutely not done. The question, however, and the legal question is, Rahul, that just because an incident happened, are you going to say that you have the right, and does law permit you to pin anybody? It's like something was wrong, the government or the system needs to find somebody responsible for it. And if that rule be so, if that be so, then when the Delhi riots happen in the CAA and RC case, why have we not been able to pin anybody? Who we have pinned are people who were actually people, all of whom who were protesting against CAA and RC. What about pinning even a single individual who incited violence? Again, discriminate application. What Mr. Bhatia said, you know, that if you believe in freedom of speech and expression, look at the hypocrisy. Why not let Sachin Tendulkar say what he wanted to say? I just have a question in response. Then why not let a Prashant Bhushan, a senior advocate, say what he wanted to say? Why not let a Sanjay Hegde say what he wanted to say? And just as of yesterday, Tanzila Anis, a worker with Ghana, some tweets, and the entire BJP machinery comes into with their toolkit, with similar tweets being posted by actors, by celebrities across Twitter.
So let Gaurav Bhatia respond to that. The BJP has been accused of using toolkits through its IT cell in the past. In fact, one website did a story where they entered the toolkit, they modified the toolkit, and they got some ministers in the government to put out tweets which had nothing to do what was originally in the toolkit, to make the point that this is basically an orchestrated exercise where suggested posts are put out and everybody else jumps in and starts saying the same thing. So it's not as if the BJP IT cell doesn't use its own toolkit. You use it for your purpose. These activists are using it for their purpose. Gaurav Bhatia respond. The BJP IT cell, and some documents have come out in public, has used toolkits in the past and continues to use toolkits as well.
Just give me some time. There are a few points to respond to. First of all, I want to respond to some factual things which are incorrect as stated on your program. I saw the Delhi police press conference and legal help was immediately extended to the arrested person, Disha Ravi. Second, it was said that in Delhi riots, no arrests were made. Not factually correct again. More than 100 arrests were made. Even Tahir Hussein's arrest, who's still behind bars and has not got bail, is because of Delhi riots, and he took part in that. Prashant Bhushan and his freedom of speech. Prashant Bhushan exercised his freedom of speech to the extent, Rahul, that he has been held guilty under contempt by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. But now let me come to two judgments of the Supreme Court on two very vital points that we are discussing. And I'm reading a paragraph for the benefit of the viewers. The difference between dissent and incitement. And it goes, and I'm quoting from the Supreme Court judgment. There are three concepts which are fundamental in understanding the reach of this most basic of human rights. The first is discussion, the second is advocacy, and the third is incitement. Mere discussion or even advocacy of a particular cause, howsoever unpopular, is at the heart of Article 19(1)(a). It is only when such discussion or advocacy reaches the level of incitement that Article 19(2).
But you're not answering my question, Gaurav Bhatia. My question was, your party's IT cell also uses toolkits.
I am answering.
And this has come out in the public domain. Documents have been edited. Your ministers have put out tweets where they put out what was in that toolkit. So a toolkit per se is not an anti-national activity, Mr. Bhatia.
Yes. No, please. Rahul, nobody has said, I think Delhi police is a very efficient police. They have not said toolkit per se is anti-national or it amounts to an offence under the Indian Penal Code. Editing can be. Like a toolkit has the word, hum protest karenge, but ahinsa se. Somebody removes even a word and changes it to hinsa. Non-violent protest is turned into a violent protest. The toolkit is edited and it is inciting people. On the other hand, take another example. You edit the toolkit and you make it, we have to emphasize on the non-violent protest. You have again edited, but that does not mean you are inciting. So this is a fallacious argument that just because you have edited the toolkit, it becomes an offence.
No, but Ariyama Sundaram, at the core of this law, is whether that person committed the offence herself. Just the editing a document or putting in some words per se is not a crime. Did she commit the crime herself? Sure.
Conspiracy.
No, but did she...
They've invoked section 120B. Please.
No, but for sedition charges to hold. Rohan Gupta wants to come in and make a quick point before I go across to Arya Masudam.
Do you need me to respond?
Just one second.
The basic point I wanted to make. Basically, we saw a few days back one reporter's WhatsApp chat, and it was very, very clear that he was trying to glorify the Pulwama issue. And even now today, there is no action has been taken by this government. How do you expect this country to rely on this government on these issues? They are talking about sedition only where there is something against BJP. They are really terrified with farm agitation, and they are trying to shut voice of social media, whatever comes in their way. We have seen that they are issued notice to Twitter. This is the first time across world that Twitter guidelines are followed and government is forcing Twitter to shut down the accounts. I am challenging BJP government to make public those accounts which they want to ban. And
okay, let Arima Sundaram respond very quickly to this charge leveled by Avni Bansal of discriminate application of charges like sedition. If you speak against the BJP or the government of the day, you may have sedition charges against you. If you don't, then they're not so particularly bothered.
Well, Rahul, reality is that it's the government of the day. If there's a charge against the government of the day, then it tends to be viewed more seriously than if it's not against the government of the day. So I think let's get away from politics here. The point of the matter is very simple. There's nothing illegal in a toolkit. It's in what the toolkit contains. It is in what the toolkit says. It's what is sought to be edited in it. Now, the fact here, I come back to square A. I started by saying this is completely premature. Why? Because there has been a charge made. There is a charge. There is a FIR. There is matters to be investigated. If what is stated in the FIR is correct, crimes are being committed. But that is a matter for investigation. We are now going on a presumption that everything stated in the FIR is wrong, that there was no incitement which was found within those toolkits. There was no conspiracy. There was no conspiracy between the lady concerned and other persons who were inciting violence. We're going on all these assumptions today, which are assumptions contrary to the FIR. Now, whether we like it or not, the law is very simple. When a first information report is registered, when an FIR is registered, if it makes out a crime, it's a duty of the police to investigate. And it's the investigating officer who takes the decision whether to arrest or not.
So
now, in this case, he feels that the arrest and police remand is required to investigate, to find out further whether there are any links or not. Whether he is correct or not will be decided by the courts. But to just at this juncture turn around and say what's being done is completely wrong, I don't know, despite my great belief in basic democratic ideals and in freedom of speech, I don't know whether I can say that what is being done is completely wrong at this juncture. I'd rather wait for the court to take the call after seeing the material.
Oh, so we've heard different points of view. The police needs to, in a court of law, establish whether the charges they've invoked are justified, whether they have the evidence to back them or not. But it is my firm belief from the core that the law of sedition has no place in a modern nation. This is a vestige of the British Empire when they were concerned about how the Indians were reacting, what they were saying, and conspiracies against them. Of course, what happened on 26th of January is wrong. There can be no question about it. And those who are part of the conspiracy need to be pulled up, prosecuted, and acted against. But sedition, and many BJP leaders, and I know this personally, when they were not in government, when they're not on camera, are of the firm view that sedition should not be invoked at all. The fact that it is being invoked as frequently as it is deeply concerning. That doesn't mean that those who are guilty of conspiracy should be allowed to go scot-free. They should not. But it also is consequential what laws are applied in invoked, because indiscriminate application of sedition laws, and this is not about one government versus the other. The government of Maharashtra is doing the same thing. It's not, one wrong doesn't make the other wrong right. They're still both wrong, and there can be no doubt about that. Now let's see whether or not the police is able to prove these charges in a court of law. As I said, I'm not judge, jury, and execution. That needs to be done in a court of law. We can only evaluate what's in the public domain, have an informed conversation, and leave it to you, our viewers, to decide who you believe had the more compelling argument. Was it Gaurav Bhatia and Aryama Sundaram, or Rohan Gupta, Leo Saldana, and Avni Bansal on the other side? We'll track this case closely. I'm slipping into a break. I'll have more for you when we come back on the other side. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.